Hey, Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my girlfriend, Jessica.
Hey.
Hello. And today is our final installment into Jack Osbourne's Haunted Homecoming. This got really scary. I was surprised. Not that the first two episodes weren't creepy, but it got worse. But before we get into that, if you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you for checking out the show. If you missed the first two recaps, go back because this is a little limited series and it'll make more sense that way. Returning spooksters, welcome back. Before we get started, if you would like to hang out with us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all the places. Our handle is at Three Spooked Girls. We also have a Discord, our amazing Facebook group, Three Spooked Girls Official. Everything's down below as always for y'all. And if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For as little as $1, you get one bonus episode a month. 5 and up, you get ad-free episodes the day before. And eventually our Gypsy Rose series. I think by the time they hear this, the show will have started.
I
So
think
that's
so.
exciting. So yeah, fun times, fun times. We keep talking about it because we're both just so ready for it to be back on TV. I'm at a
Yes.
weird point where I don't really have a lot of reality TV to watch right now.
You're like,
So I'm
perfect
like,
timing, Gypsy. You're bringing it back to me.
yes. Oh my God. But besides TV, if you like to read, we have a book club, Spookster Literary Society, and definitely check it out. We're in the book clubs app. That's also held in our Discord. That's where we have our meetings every month. We do a feminine rage read, and then we also do just our main read. So if you want to hang out with us and talk about books, come join us in book club. Everything's free. We have over 200 members, I think, now. So that's exciting for book club. Love that. So we're going to go ahead and just get on in. So we are going over to a place that is super, super haunted. And also, fun fact, I love how the UK says like year one and like year whatever. It just sounds fancier than
Grade.
how we
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah, it's true. It makes it sound like, I don't
More
know,
proper.
a little bit. Yeah.
I love it. I don't know. I always just feel so much more fancy. So we're going to a place that Jack went on a field trip to in year one of school. It was the Missenden Abbey. Oh my God. I don't want to go here. It scares me.
Oh, no.
Like, okay. It's so scary. We're gonna get into it. So basically, he explains to us that this was about a mile, maybe only half a mile from his school. So, they went there quite a bit. And I'm assuming it was probably like a free or very low cost type of thing to set up for, a field trip.
Mm-hmm.
So
It makes
love that.
sense.
So we head back over to the archives and go with our favorite, Dr. Kate. And she's like, "Ooh, I found a juicy place for us today that you've been to." So,
Ooh.
because I kind of feel like they were probably like, "Here's the options of what we can do to fit into what we're doing for
Mhm.
this show. Pick one." So this is what she picked.
She probably was like, what can I get the most research on as well? Because that's always
Yeah,
hard
that's a
when
big thing.
we'll get people's like suggestions or like this one like place in this like remote town in like the random corner of the earth, and we're
Mhm.
like, we only have Google.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Limited on resources. If we had Dr. Kate's resources, oh my God, I would
I want
die.
to be friends with her.
Me too. I want to be her when I grow up. So she tells us that the Abbey was founded in 1133.
Dang, it's
And
old.
right? So old. I'm like, holy shit. So, like, it's crazy. By Augustinian monks. And they were unique because instead of wearing the brown robes that monks are usually portrayed in, these monks wore black. Didn't explain why, but I
Ooh.
was like, that's spooky. Love this.
I was like,
And
ninja monks.
oh, what they were doing. Yeah, they had
Oh,
to kind of be ninjas.
oh.
So she explains that these Augustinian monks are from the Catholic faith and they are pre Henry VIII. She calls them very bad monks. So, with the area that the abbey is in, there's tunnels that led to an abbey of nuns, and they were fucking. They were fucking
I
the
was
nuns.
gonna say, this sounds salacious.
Yes, not only were they doing that, they also were participating in embezzlement, sodomy, gambling, and other nefarious activities. I'm like, what the fuck else?
Oh
My
my
God.
goodness. They're like
Right?
the mob of monks, like,
Yeah.
good God. I mean, but
I
also, like,
know.
as long as all the sexual stuff is consensual, then live your best life, monks.
Yeah. And upon further research, there was one monk in particular who got caught, and she says it's so much more proper. She says in a compromising position with a nun, aka they were doing it. And instead of him getting punished or finding out what his punishment would be from whatever their group
Mhm.
is called, he decided to slit his throat and kill himself.
Oh,
Right there on the grounds, yeah, and then from there and it's like, "Oh my god." So in that same area in this, like, courtyard, there was graves that were all around right there in the abbey, and they were all exhumed for some reason during the '80s, and when they dug them up, they were in these, like, really kinda, like, creepy I'll just say they're creepy looking. They're medieval stone coffins, basically just looked like stone boxes, basically.
oh.
And they dug up a ton, yeah. What was weird was shortly after this, so in the '80s, there was a huge fire at the Abbey, and so they're like, "Ooh, was it because they disrupted so many spirits? Like,
I mean,
what happened? Could
don't
be,"
touch
you
people
know?
don't touch people like that.
Right? Yeah, don't exhume unless you really, really need to. Let's just say that. After the fire happened, there's been literally like so many reports of poltergeist activity, sightings of gray ladies, angry entities, just like huge, huge. This whole property is just a huge hotspot pretty much everywhere. And then I was kind of laughing because they're like, Jack and Kate are walking through the courtyard or whatever, and they see this tree and they're like, "Oh my god, that tree is so creepy. Is it gonna come get me like Poltergeist?"
They're a little witty. I like these shows. They have a good sense of humor throughout them.
Yeah. Oh my god, same. And then it was funny because, like, I got distracted because on the grounds there's, like, this white pop-up tent thing, and it looks like the white tent from Great British Bake Off, so I was like, "Oh my god, is this where they film it?"
Could you
Probably
imagine?
not.
I mean,
But if
maybe.
they did I mean, maybe, but I was just because they didn't even, like, acknowledge it, but I'm like, "I love this." So now I'm
I
like,
love
I have to
that.
go find out where they filmed that show because it was the same tent, it was the same kinda tent, maybe they use it for something else, could have been a
Maybe.
greenhouse, I don't know, but I was just like, "Holy shit." So they go inside and then they start with a couple witness interviews. The first one is from a woman named Laura, she's the events manager on the property, and she tells us a few different instances. She said she's heard footsteps in the main corridor. She saw an arm and a back of a dress, like, moving like someone it kinda sounded like someone, like, walking away type of thing.
Okay.
When she saw that entity, it was like a white gray color, and other people have reported the same. And so the conclusion with that is this is the entity of the gray lady, who we will learn more about. So,
Ooh,
yes.
I like a gray
So
lady.
I love it when there's, like, a gray lady or the white lady,
Mhm.
like the lady of the property is basically how that manifests. So, this gray lady was Elizabeth Carrington, and she was the daughter of a plantation owner and died mysteriously in the 19th century.
Ooh,
Their family had made their fortune off of sugar plantations, and they actually owned the abbey from the 1800s until 1947. So they owned it
okay.
a long yeah, they owned it a long time.
Didn't know you can own an abbey, but I like it.
I'm assuming probably it was like they owned the land and then
That would make
the abbey
sense.
was their
I
tax
also feel
write-off.
like reading back in the day, like Jane Austen era, they would talk about,
Mhm.
like, the parish on this person's property.
Yeah.
Like, think what is it? Pride and Prejudice? Like, the
Mhm.
cousin that comes is, like, in love with he keeps calling her, like, "my lady."
Mhm.
I think that's kind of the same situation. She probably, like, owns the building.
Oh,
This
for sure.
this
Yeah.
tracks. I like this.
Besides seeing the white lady, she's also mentioned, and others have mentioned, doors opening and closing by themselves. So, some more physical manifestations with these hauntings. And then we meet another manager. It went too fast, but I think it was like a operations type of manager or something like something there at the property, right? Her name's Helen. And when she originally started working there, she worked at the bar and said that one day that the temperature dropped and she was brand new. So she was like, "Oh, shoot," thinking maybe a thermostat broke or whatever kind of like heating system they have in there. So she went and talked to her boss, and her boss says, "Oh, don't worry. It's just Fred. We have a ghost named Fred who we think is harmless."
Good on Fred. Good on Fred.
I'm
Gotta
like,
have a
don't
good
you
old
think?
wholesome ghost.
Right? But shouldn't you have told her this before? Like, just saying. Like, oh, by the
I
way.
fe I kinda feel like in that situation, it's like you don't want to alarm someone that there's something going
True.
on, because I think
Mhm.
that in your mind, like, will fill in the blanks, like, "Oh, I heard a noise. It must be Frank," or Fred, I mean. But, like, if Fred just magically does something and you're like, "What the fuck was that?" And like, "Oh, that's just Fred." You might be like, "I lived through it, I'm fine."
Mhm. So, like, where the bar is, there's this little, like, hall room thing, and on the ceiling, it's kinda, like, shaped like a dome, and it, like, kinda, like, goes up and in a little bit. I don't know how to d describe that
Mhm.
not visually. Basically, it said that if you stand under the dome that's in the ceiling, that Fred will go with you downstairs. Like, he'll listen when you're going downstairs, and then that's when it'll start to warm up. So she did that, and then she said it went, went back to normal. It wasn't like the temp drop anymore. He pops up in the cellar again later, so I'm like, maybe he just wanted someone to hang out with him. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just like, "Hi, I'm here. Acknowledge
Yeah.
me."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, this isn't really a spoiler, but basically the other time that he comes up is, like, they say that down in the cellar. Because at first I was like, "Not the cellar, fuck the cellar," but really it's like a storage room now. So, they just there's reports that, like, he's kinda mischievously has moves stuff sometimes. So, again, nothing malicious with Fred.
What if, like, the Fred in the cellar is not the same person, like, entity, and, like, they're just really fucking pissed off because they're like, "It's not fucking Fred. My name is Edmund. Come on."
Right? You're getting it wrong, motherfuckers. Another story that Helen mentions is that one of their waitresses came up to her, I'm assuming also was new, and said she saw a hooded figure walking outside. So maybe a monk. We
That
don't
would
know.
track.
I mean, so many have been buried there. And then another one that Helen quickly mentions is that in the upstairs room, she has heard a child voice entity type thing. So gets really creepy because Jack and Kate and Dr. Kate, they're like, all right, we're gonna set up our stuff. And they set up the same stuff we've seen during this whole series, like the REM pods, the flashlights, the temp gauges, like all of that. But there's something new. There's a new type of spirit box with
Ooh,
us called Boo Bear.
boo
And it
bear.
yes, and it literally talks in this creepy ass like kid voice because it's like a kid toy. They did something to use it as a spirit box now. Oh my
It's
god,
like
it's
they
so
took a Teddy
creepy.
Ruxpin and turned it into a spirit box.
Pretty much.
Oh.
I even wrote down like Kate's reaction. She said, "Why did you bring this? It's horrific." And yeah, it's fucking creepy. It's so creepy. Kate decides before all the stuff gets going that she kind of wants to address the spirits from outside on the grounds, and she decides to start talking in Latin to them. And I'm like, great.
Oh, for the monks.
Yes. Those monks during that time, they only spoke Latin or French. And she was like, "Well, my Latin is better than my French, so that's why we're going with that." And I was like, "Okay, fair."
That makes sense. Also, Latin is such, like, a unique language, like,
Yeah.
that it's interesting that she's more proficient in Latin than French.
True. I mean, I'm sure she comes across it a lot during research and stuff. So that was really the only reason why I'm like, why would you be more proficient with that? But that would make
That
sense, I
makes
guess.
sense.
But I'm just like, no, every horror movie where they start talking to these things in Latin, it just goes bad. So I am
True.
scared.
Yeah, stop talking to entities in Latin. It either really pisses them off, and my theory is that most entities don't know Latin, and they're like, "Why the fuck
Mm,
are you talking to me in this?"
yeah.
Or they do, and you've just accidentally said something really inappropriate.
Right. No, she was Kate luckily knows her stuff. And it was just kind of like basic, like, is anyone there? Like, does anyone want to talk to us? Like, don't mean any harm. Very respectful, like they've been this whole time. Like they did in the other episodes, they bring in another medium who doesn't know the history, doesn't have any of these accounts, goes in blind. This woman, her name is, I'm probably going to mispronounce her name, but I think her name is Inbal is her first name. And I love her. She's great. Immediately they go in and she says that she's already feeling like shortness of breath and a really heavy
Mm.
energy, just a really heaviness with the whole area. She starts picking up like little footsteps, like running, like she can,
Aw.
she's channeling that. So she's like, maybe there's kids here. She's like, right now, first off the bat, she's like, the thing I can only say clearly is whatever's here is existing on a different plane than what we're existing on right now.
Okay, okay.
So then they go into the hall room thing where like the bar is or whatever with that dome ceiling
Mhm.
section. She immediately goes to this like one corner of the room and she's like, there's a spirit like over here. And so they go over there and they're like, well, is it one? Is it a bunch? Like,
Mhm.
who's here with us? And she's like, no, it's one. And she confirms that it's the spirit of a woman. It's an intelligent entity because
Okay.
like the other places,
Mhm.
they're trying to confirm what's residual and not, right? And
Mhm.
she says, I knew right away because as soon as I started channeling her, my hands started tingling like she was trying to reach out to me.
Okay, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
And she describes this entity as a middle-aged lady. She says she's not charming, warm, or smiley, and more businesslike. And I laughed after this because like immediately she's like, I'm sorry." Like she's like, "I'm not being like trying to tell the entity, I'm not being rude. I'm just describing you." Like she's
Aw, like, the entity
apologizing
got a
to
little
her.
self-conscious, like, "D is that a bad thing?" No, you're
Right.
fine. You're fine. You can
She's
be
like
all business, babe. You can be a business
Yeah,
babe.
she's like, "Oh, sorry." And then she's like, "No, like businessy." And she says, "This is a woman who has power, who was wealthy. She was not someone who worked here or anything or was a servant or anything like that." And she says that this entity manifests as a giant figure, like much taller than she would have been in real life, but this is more for representation of her importance as an individual.
That's kinda cool.
And that this entity is not stationary, that they probably can expect there to be things that move, feel a breeze, and other similar manifestations, which we already
Okay.
know from hearing from Helen and Laura. And she said that this entity has such a strong energy that even non-sensitive people would be able to pick up her presence. And she says this might be in the form of a flicker of color or like seeing something out of the corner of their eye and knowing that it's like something that shouldn't be there, which also coincides with what we have already heard about this place.
So she really is a boss ass bitch.
She really is.
She was in life and in afterlife.
Apparently, yeah.
Wow,
I
you can
love
have
this
a
for
reign
her.
forever.
So they leave this room and then they go back into the courtyard where the bodies were exhumed. And she says that immediately she's picking up sadness, a sense of loss, violence, punishment. And she said she can't see a specific spirit, but she can sense or feel planks of wood. And she's like, maybe this was a podium or a coffin or some kind of box shaped structure, something like that,
Oh.
and that this area manifests by drop of temperature, and it's like one specific spot she's in because you see her where
Mhm.
she's standing and talking about this, and she literally just sidesteps one step over, and then she's like, this spot right next to it, immediately fine. So it's like,
Okay.
that's interesting because I feel like the original spot's probably like must have been somebody specific or something. Like I said, they get set up for the investigation. The medium leaves and they set up Boo Bear, the REM pods, and this footstep tracker thing where it had been reported there was like the sound of a crying baby type of thing. And Jack says that he immediately has a sense of anxiety here. And I am like, fuck this bear because this bear starts going off immediately and it says, what what did you say? Did you say something? And then another thing it says is, "Do you wanna play a game?" I'm like,
Get the
"No,
fuck out.
no."
Immediately, just pack your shit and go. Like, if any entity asks you wanna play a game, mm-mm. Nope.
Leave,
Entities, stop asking people if they wanna play games. Just no, it's bad news.
right? And then the temperature starts shifting. It starts going down like a degree and then another degree. And it's the sensor, the footstep tracker that's on Jack's side that keeps going off. And, they're doing their due diligence to make sure that no one from the crew's walking around, like, nothing like that. Literally nobody's moving. No one. And then the fucking bear goes off again and says, "You want to be my friend?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, no."
I mean, maybe, but, like, I don't know if you're a bad entity, like, you wanna hurt me or you just are a child and this is how children talk.
I have
I don't
trust
know.
issues. So I'm like,
Oh my
"Mm-mm."
god, such trust issues with entities, you can't believe them. You're like, "I want
Right.
you to like, I wanna be your friend, but, like, also, what if you possess my body?"
Right? And for whatever reason, it pretty much starts favoring Jack because all the sensors on Jack's side are what's going off. Nothing's happening on Kate's side of the room.
Oh my god, what if when Jack was there as a kid, this entity, like, saw him and was
Oh,
like, "Okay," but
I
then
remember them.
when they come back, they're like, "That's the guy," and he's like, "You came back, you wanna be my friend." Oh my god, I'm gonna cry.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. I love that. We'll go with that narrative. So
I'm gonna spin it positively. My shirt says optimistic today.
perfect, perfect. So Jack starts trying to get a response from this entity and asks, because it's at least presenting as a child. So he asks if they can play a game and things like that. And then the bear says, "Can you tell me a secret?" I'm like, oh my God, this entity just wants the tea. Okay.
Oh my
But,
god. Maybe it's a
right.
teenage girl.
Could be. So Kate asks the entity to tap on the floor, and we hear it, but it's in post because they can't hear it when it's happening in real time. But like on the recording back, that's when you hear it. You hear like a rhythmic tapping type of thing,
I
right?
always love that on shows where they're like, "Ugh,
Hmm.
no, nothing happened," and then they go sit down and they listen to everything and they're like, "Oh my god, it was playing with me and I was being a dick."
I know. Yeah. So like they mention later that they heard that like post. But the bear goes off again and asks, "Can you tell me a secret?" The temp shifts again. And then the bear says, "It's cold in here." I'm like,
Oh, so even the entity is like, "Wait, I've brought the air too it's too cold now." Oh no, does that mean there's another entity that's making him cold? I don't like it.
yeah, there's a lot of him here, so I could see that. But then they hear this thump sound that sounded like it had came from outside, and Jack's like, "Oh, was someone shutting a car door or something?" Because it was like a soft kind of thud like that. But
Mhm.
they look outside, and literally no one's out there, no one's near any cars, nothing. So they're like, "Oh God." So then again, temp drops, all of that. And then they kind of conclude this area and shut off the REM pod. Now, the property as a whole is made up of 10 acres. So they want to go outside to investigate as they would. They decide to separate because when Kate was researching this place and they were hearing the stories, thought about it and they're like, the common denominator is these people are having these experiences when they're solo, not when they're, with anybody else. So let's try it, right?
Okay. Mhm.
So Kate goes out to the woods and she takes a ghost box with her, obviously, a cameraman. And Jack is at that where they exhume the body spot. And Kate, her spirit box just like starts going off quickly. It says, "Welcome."
It's
Sh-
friendly.
and I'm like, okay, that's not bad. That's fine. And then she asks, like, if anybody is there. They reply, "People." And I'm like, oh, maybe they mean like, yeah, you and all these people are here. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
Listen, you're here. But
And
also they
then
might think that they're still people.
oh, true.
Yeah.
Kinda like the others, but they didn't know they're dead. Oh, that'd be so sad.
Aw. I mean, like, I would think that, like, ghost like, I wanna think like a ghost is like, I'm still a person. I'm a dead person, but I'm a
Mhm.
person.
Yeah. And so then they're kinda just walking more, and then the cameraman, he's like, "It sounds like it just" 'cause she was like, "What is it saying?" 'Cause, like, you kinda get, like, a bunch of like, it's a lot. There's quite a few voices and stuff, and
Mhm.
he's like, "It said Kate. It said, like, you. It said your name."
Oh.
And she's like, "What?"
Well, it's not like they didn't say their name at all, and they were like, "Your name is Kate," and she's like, "Oh my god."
Right, exactly.
It's
Uh
intelligence, like
So she tries to call onto the gray lady, no luck. She tries to kind of goad that monk who killed himself. She's like saying stuff like, were you afraid of punishment? Why did you decide to do that? Things like that, trying to get a reaction, right? Oh, and then she starts her walk. She kind of like has walked her loop. So she's walking, back towards the building and she's like, "Will one of you guys escort me back?" type of thing. And then she brings up the fires that happened in the 80s after they exhumed the bodies. And then there's apparently a bunch of birds in this like tree that's by them, and they all freak out and they take off.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's weird because after the birds startle and go, the spirit box starts going crazy and there's a bunch of like muffled voices and stuff, and you can hear one of them say yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they decided, yeah, we're gonna walk you back. But
that's nice.
right? And Jack, he's sitting there with his ghost box and stuff, and he gets like this weird, creepy, like laughing noise picking up. And I'm like, ew, stop. No, gross. Hate it. After that, I think they were like, we're both freaked out. Let's go check out Fred. So they go check out Fred and the bar and, the cellar and like all of that. And when they're in that like hall room, it's interesting and it's kind of creepy because like at first nothing's really happening. There's like no temperature changes, no nothing. So they're sitting there for a while, but then they eventually start picking up contact and they realize that the temperature has started to drop just slightly again, where it's like the 1 degree and then another degree and things like that. And so she asks if this is the lady because that's, where the medium had saw her, and asks if it is, can she come near them? After that, I think the gray lady just doesn't like to be bossed around or something because
Oh.
it's like this is kind of like was like a little bit scary is like Kate says she starts feeling like pressure in her head. I kind of equated it to like, like sinus pressure and stuff like that. But then she said
Mhm.
she's starting to get like a bit queasy. You can tell she's getting like physically uncomfortable and she's like, it's starting to feel like muggy in here. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't feel right. I don't feel well type of thing. And Jack, it's like he can also feel the like mugginess and weirdness
Mhm.
within here, but it's more so affecting Kate than him at this point. And Jack's like, oh my God, I'm feeling like he comes over to that same exact spot and he's like, oh, I got this weird feeling shooting up my arm. I'm like, oh my God, gray lady, do not give Jack a heart attack right now.
Be nice
Holy
to Jack.
shit. I was so scared. So she's like, I'm sorry, I have to take my coat off, like, whatever. And then they walk over to where the bar is and he actually like gets her water and stuff. And you can tell she's like not doing good for a minute, right?
Mm.
And she's just like trying to kind of like get it together and whatever. And he's talking about like, yeah, I've seen it. I knew what was like, it was obviously affecting her. He's like, I've seen people have reactions where it was so severe that they were dry heaving for literally like what would have been, quote, like no reason, you
Oh,
know?
that's terrible.
I know,
Driving
I'm
is
like,
kind of the worst.
right? Like, ghost, please don't ever do that to me. Thank you.
Yes. Respect boundaries, please.
Right? He's like, "Do you wanna, like let's move on from this area." And they're like, "Okay, cool." And once she kinda gets out of that area, then she starts feeling more like herself. And this is when they were down in the cell they went back down in the cellar, and then that's where they told the whole, like, Fred rearranging stuff and what have you. And it's just kinda, like, more chill, and Kate's, like, kinda going back to normal, basically, now that she's, like, away from that area. And for the last part of this investigation, Jack does this last part solo because, like I said, they've already, acknowledged that a lot of these experiences happen when people are by themselves. He goes down there. I think he's back. I don't know if he's in the cellar. I can't remember. He's in some room. Actually, I think he might have been back in the room where the bear originally was. I can't quite
Mhm.
remember. It was dark. But anyway, so he's there and he brought a different ghost box with him. Thank fuck it's not the bear. And he immediately gets voices and they hear hello. Jack tries to ask for a name, and the word gray comes up along with a lot of people again talking at once.
Mhm.
Other little snippets they picked up, one was killed by a girl.
Oh.
Right? I was like, "Oh, shit." And he said after that, this is kind of when things started to feel sort of like on edge and kind of more tense. There was a lot of like creaks and pops and stuff like that. And at first, he talks about like how he's done so many investigations and these old buildings, they're always settling. So, nothing too alarming quite at first. He starts asking if there's somebody there and it starts picking up voices again. And we hear a door close. Again, they check to make sure that like no one from the production team's there. He even calls the guy's name who had just been there because,
Mhm.
like, also, I was already freaked out. So, like, when they put him in the room, the dude's like leaving the room. So, of course, the guy shuts the door. And I was like, oh my God, it's starting. And then they acknowledged it was not. was like, "Oh my god." But it was all I was very concerned for Jack at this point. As these voices are, like, coming through the spirit box, he says it feels like somebody's standing behind him. Gross,
Oh, that's lovely.
right? And then the most, I would say, probably exciting/alarming part of the whole investigation is sees somebody he sees a white figure through
Mm,
the window because he's facing a window walking across the courtyard. So he's like, and you can see this is so genuine because he's like looking like he's questioning himself. He's like, "What the fuck? Who is that? What is that?" So he
mhm,
jumps up and you see him like try to get the camera and like turn it around to like capture it, but by the time he gets the camera and turns it, it's gone. He's reiterating in like the post interview, he's like, "I've never faked anything. I have no reason to. I
mhm,
have nothing to gain from faking any of this." He's like, "Also, I'm not someone that's I would say is sensitive. Like, I don't see these kind of things. Sure, I've seen doors close and things like that, but I've never
mhm,
seen a full apparition like this before." He's like, "Nobody was out there. We don't have any way to explain this." He's like, "But I know what I saw." And the fact that the figure was white in like the pitch black dark. So, like, there's no confusing it for a shadow of a person walking or anything like that. So he's like, "We just have no explanation for this." I'm like, "I do. It's probably a monk or the gray lady."
right?
Sick of your shit. It's just, it was just one of those things that really, really stuck with him and I think really kind of freaked him out. But that is where the investigation ends is that, they're confirming that all of these places have had such like crazy paranormal activity
Mhm,
and he doesn't say the word vindicate, I think more like validated in these
mhm,
early memories he's had and these other experiences and everything. And then that's just kind of like puts it on like a tidy little bow where it wraps it up for this series. So that is where our adventure for Haunted Homecoming ends. Overall, I really enjoyed this. It was
mhm.
a good little pleasant surprise for a series. Not that I
Yeah,
expected it to be bad, but I had
I
0
was
expectations. So,
I was worried it would be a little cheesy, like, to be
mhm.
honest, because typically when, like, a celebrity gets a show like this, it's a little bit more on the cheesier side, and I loved how Jack took it really serious, and he was very
Mhm.
respectful. He was respectful of both of, like, the entities and the places that they went. I mean, one was literally
Mhm.
their house. It's just kind of like it's nice to see that, especially because like, people assume the Osbournes are these, like, crazy out of control people, and I feel
Yeah.
like they're probably just really chill.
I liked it because I felt like it was very genuine and I think throughout the whole thing it does show how much passion he has for this.
Mhm.
And I don't know if the right word is like this industry or like what you
Right?
want, like exactly what you would call it. But I think it's great. And I know at this point it's like a few years old, but definitely recommend it. There's like a million of them because he's like done so many
It's true.
on Max. That's where we watch this, by the way. So definitely
Mhm.
check it out. And next week we got a treat. I'm so excited because we're gonna record that right now. But so yeah, spoilers, we'll have another Jack something next week. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up for this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Toodles.